Have you ever had a potential client on the hook, ready to sign, and then somehow they just disappeared? What if I told you that there's a single sales mistake that's silently draining 80% of your potential deals? And the craziest part, it happens right at the moment when you think you've won. Today, I'm breaking down Alex Hormozi's shocking revelation about the one thing most business owners get completely wrong in their sales process. After 15 years of designing websites and analyzing conversion data for hundreds of clients, I've seen this mistake play out countless of times, and it's costing you big time. Alex Hormozi built a $100 million business empire largely through mastering sales psychology. And his analysis of thousands of sales conversations, he's identified this as the number one mistake beginners make. The fascinating thing is that this mistake doesn't happen when you're struggling to get interest. It doesn't happen when you're handling objections. It happens precisely when you think you've already won the sale. In this video, I'll show you exactly what this mistake is, why it happens to even experienced salespeople, and the simple three-step framework to eliminate it from your sales process forever. By the end, you'll know exactly how to avoid the silent killer that's turning your wins into losses. But before we dive in, if you're getting value from this, make sure to hit that subscribe button. I share insights like this every week to help business owners convert more website visitors into paying customers. So, what exactly is this critical mistake that's costing you 80% of your deals? It's what Alex Hormozi calls selling past the close, continuing to talk after the customer has already said yes. Here's how Hormozi puts it. Do not sell yourself out of a sale. This is something that a lot of beginners do. They get excited when the person says yes, and then they start bringing up more details. Let me paint a picture of how this typically plays out. You've had a great sales conversation with a potential client about your services. You've addressed their concerns, demonstrated value, and then you ask for the sale. They say, yes, this sounds great. How do we get started? This is the moment of truth. And this is where most people go wrong. Instead of simply saying, great, let me send over the contract and payment link, they keep talking. They start explaining additional features, mentioning potential limitations, or even worse, bringing up new information that wasn't a part of the initial conversation. Hormozi says, and he uses a brilliant analogy for this. He compares it to finally getting a potential client to agree to your proposal. And then instead of simply processing the agreement, you suddenly say, oh, let me tell you about all these additional technical details I haven't mentioned yet. Just like that, their certainty turns into hesitation. What was a clear yes is now clouded with new information that they didn't even ask for. The same thing happens in business. The moment someone agrees to work with you is actually the most dangerous part of your entire sales process. Every word you say after they've agreed increases the risk of losing the deal. I've seen this countless of times with my website clients. They'll have a prospect ready to sign up for a new website project, and then they'll start explaining all the technical details of WordPress or talking about potential timeline challenges. And suddenly the prospect is saying, let me think about it and get back to you. That yes just turned into a maybe, and in sales, maybe almost always means no. I'm going to show you how to fix this by following my three-step framework at the end of the video, so make sure you watch all the way till the end. So why do we make this mistake, and why is it so costly? The psychology behind this is actually fascinating. When someone says yes to our offer, we experience a rush of excitement and relief. That emotional high often triggers what I call nervous overselling. We want to validate their decision and show them they're making the right choice. We think we're being helpful by providing more information, but we're actually undermining the sale. Here's the brutal truth. Every new detail you introduce after agreement increases the likelihood of doubt. It's like opening doors to rooms that were previously closed, and behind any of those doors could be a reason to say no. I've observed this pattern repeatedly across industries. One of my clients in the consulting space shared a perfect example with me just the other day. They had finally landed a meeting with their dream client. It was actually a Fortune 500 company that they'd been pursuing for months. The presentation went flawlessly, and the decision maker said, this is exactly what we need. Let's move forward. Instead of simply confirming the next steps, my client got excited and started explaining additional service options they hadn't discussed yet. We could also help with your international expansion strategy though that would require a different team and timeline. That opened up a door to a can of worms. The client's expression changed immediately. What was a straightforward agreement suddenly became complex and uncertain. let's just focus on the original scope for now and circle back on these other items later. That's what they said. That later never came, and the relationship started with a much smaller project than it could have. When I analyze conversion data across dozens of businesses, the pattern is clear. In sales conversations where additional information is introduced after initial agreement, the likelihood of closing drops by approximately 80%. That's not an exaggeration. It's actually what the data shows. Alex Hormozi puts it perfectly when he says, the moment you have agreement, you shut your mouth, you ask for payment information, and you close. This applies to your website too. The analytics don't lie. When a visitor clicks buy now or sign up, every additional field or step you add reduces conversion by 10-15%. That's why the best converting websites have streamlined checkout processes with minimal steps after the customer has decided to buy. Here's the counterintuitive truth that most people miss. Silence after agreement isn't awkward, it's strategic. The person who speaks first after agreement often loses. When you keep talking, you're essentially negotiating against yourself. Think about it. They've already said yes. There's literally nothing more you need to say that will improve your position. You can only go down from there. I've learned to embrace strategic silence in my own sales conversations. When a client says yes, I simply smile, nod, and move directly to the next steps. This simple change has dramatically improved my close rate and could do the same for you. Now that we understand the problem, let's talk about the solution. I've developed a three-step framework based on Hormozi's teachings that will help you avoid selling past the close and dramatically increase your conversion rate. The first step is learning to identify when a prospect actually is ready to buy. This sounds obvious, but many salespeople miss these signals because they're too focused on their own pitch. Close signals come in two forms. There's verbal and nonverbal. Verbal close signals include phrases like, this sounds good to me, or when can we get started, or what are the next steps, or how do we move forward, or if they say something like, hey, I think this is what we need. Nonverbal close signals are just as important. Nodding and leaning forward, taking notes about implementation details, asking questions, specific questions about timing or logistics, bringing other decision makers into the conversation, checking their calendar. Those are all clear signals that somebody is very highly interested and is going to say yes. When you hear or see these signals, it's time to stop selling and start closing. This is specifically critical in website design, where clients often signal readiness by asking about timeliness or specific functionality. Those are objections, they're buying signals. I know that because I'm in that industry. Now, this is where Alex Hormozi's advice is crystal clear. Once you recognize a closed signal, stop talking about your offer and immediately transition to processing the sale. Here's exactly what to say. Great, I'm excited to work with you on this. The next step is, and then implement the specific action. That specific action might be sending a contract, it might be processing a payment, setting up an onboarding call, or creating their account. Notice what I'm not doing here. I'm not adding new information about the product or service. I'm not mentioning additional features. I'm not even asking if they have more questions. I'm simply moving the process forward. This technique works because it maintains momentum. Every second that passes between agreement and completion is a second where doubt can creep in. In my website business at Surplus Support, we've streamlined this process completely. When a client says yes, we immediately send them a simple digital contract and payment link. No additional sales pitch, no complicated paperwork, just the essential next step. And by the way, before I talk about step number 3, if you're getting any value from this, make sure to subscribe because I drop new videos like this every single week. Now, step number 3, and this is the step where most people get it wrong. They think that they need to tell the client everything before they sign. But Alex Hormozi's approach flips this on its head. Save the additional details for after the transaction is complete. Once the client has signed and paid, that's when you can share detailed onboarding processes, additional service options, potential challenges, and how you'll handle them, and nice to have features. At this point, these details won't scare them away. They'll actually enhance the client's confidence in their decision. They'll think, wow, I'm getting even more value than I expected. Let me show you how this looks in practice. Here's a before and after example of a sales conversation. Before, the client says, this sounds good. I think we're ready to move on. The salesperson says, great. Oh, and I should also mention that we have this additional feature, and sometimes there can be delays with this part of the process, and we might need to adjust the timeline if blah, blah, blah. Client then comes back and says, actually, let me think about this and get back to you. And here's an example of the right way to do it. The client says, hey, this sounds good. I think we're ready to move forward. The salesperson says, excellent, I'll send over the agreement right now so we can get started. Where should I send it? The client says, send it to my email. Salesperson says, perfect, you'll have it in the next 5 minutes. See the difference? The second approach maintains momentum and gets to the close without introducing new variables. Here's the counterintuitive truth that most sales training misses. The best salespeople aren't the best talkers, they're the best listeners who know when to stop talking. When I implemented this framework across my business, our close rate increased by 40%. For my clients who've adopted this approach, the results have been similar or even better. This isn't just theory, it's a proven system that works. Now that you understand this critical mistake, let me ask you something. What if I told you this is just the tip of the iceberg? You see, knowing when to stop talking is powerful, but it's actually part of a larger sales framework that Alex Hormozi has perfected. The framework that's generated over $100 million in sales. Think about it. We've only covered what to do at the very end of the sales conversation. But what about everything that happens before that crucial moment? What about the exact words that get prospects to the point where they're ready to say yes in the first place? This is where most business owners continue to struggle. They might fix the selling past the close mistake we covered today, but they're still missing the psychological triggers that make prospects eager to buy before you even ask for the sale. In my video, Sell Like Alex Hormozi, Master Closer Today, I break down the complete methodology, including the precise questioning framework that gets prospects to convince themselves to buy, the value building techniques that make price completely irrelevant, the exact script for handling the toughest objections, even from the most skeptical prospects. Imagine combining what you learned today with these additional techniques. Not only would you stop losing deals at the finish line, but you dramatically increase how many prospects actually reach that finish line in the first place. Your implementation challenge for this week is simple. The next time you're in a sales conversation and you hear a buying signal, catch yourself before you start overselling. Instead, practice strategic silence followed by a simple next step. Then, to take your sales skills to the next level, check out that video on Hormozi's complete closing methodology. You can watch it by clicking on the video on your screen, or the link is in the description. See you in the next video.